Hi, I'm talking with someone I've worked with in the past, search and rescue team, and I don't know where the conversation is going to go because she's always in Iceland, and I haven't kept up with her much, but I hope it'll be interesting. I don't. I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you Danielle because that's what I'm used to calling you, and I'll bring her on the screen right now, and we're going to probably use this on multiple things, but we're going to try some video too. Danielle, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Mark?
Good. This is so cool that I can talk to you in Iceland.
Yeah.
And we were talking, you planned to be there for X amount of years and went to X+2 or whatever because time changes. How has adulting worked out for you? Has it been all that you thought it would be?
I don't know. I had turned 31 recently.
31. Oh,
Yeah.
that's getting serious.
It is. So seeing that number was a bit of a wake-up call. But I'm just always doing things my way and just following my passions. And
yeah, no, that's how you ended up in Iceland. There's no other way to end up in Iceland. You don't take a wrong turn at Secaucus and end in Iceland. You make choices.
Accidentally kayak too far.
yeah. You get caught in the current. Did you? What do you miss about the United States?
That's an easy answer. I miss the forest and I miss animals.
But they got forest and animals there.
Like if you look at the entire country of Iceland, it's the same size as Kentucky, the state, and only 2% of the country has a forest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and by forest, that means the trees can be like as tall as your knees. So there's a joke here: if you get lost in a forest, you just stand up, and that's it's just because the soil is very like rocky. So it takes the trees like hundreds of years to actually become an actual forest. So
it just hit me because I'm kind of stupid, but it's actually like a land made of ice. So nothing grows there.
It's a land of fire and ice.
Fire and ice. Okay, that's a good combination.
So things grow, but it's just very slow growing. So because there's no forest, there's no habitat for forest creatures. So the only native mammals really are the Arctic fox. And there's also sheep and horses. But other than that, there's no squirrels. There's no wild rabbits.
I would have no problem with no squirrels. I don't like squirrels.
Yeah, because you see them all the time, but I miss them.
No, they're tree rats.
Yeah.
But so this is, I guess this is kind of not as much paradise as it's less polluted and blah, blah, blah. But we've recently seen it. What do? We've cut down what we do in 30 days, and the planet's starting to heal that quickly, and I'm by no means a liberal or a naturalist or a conservative or extremist or anything like that, but I do note data and I note differences, and I've always felt that if you look at it in different ways, this planet treats us much like we are an infection. A body treats an infection, and it's trying to eradicate us sometimes because we're killing it. But they've shown you can go and look at the waterways here, and they're so much clearer. The Schuylkill, you can see into the Schuylkill.
Wow, I wish I was home right now to see that.
Yeah, it's amazing. But we'll you give 30 days or so, and we'll be back to crapping it up, and everything will be black as mud. It'll be back to the way we do it. You did a little bit of search and rescue out here, and then you did it out there, and it's how is it different?
Well, it's different in so many ways. The immediate difference that I noticed is just because what we primarily did was just around the city, and then especially in the forest. And like we just talked about, there's no forest in Iceland. So the first time I went to a training here, it's just mainly in lava fields. So here you can see usually for miles and miles and miles and miles. and I participated in a dog training. And usually the dog training's back at home, like it's in a thick forest. You have to worry about, what you're walking through and everything, and you have to worry about snakes or insects or ticks or something like that. But here everything is so open, and the most dangerous predator is the weather. So you just have to be prepared for like 90-mile-per-hour wind coming at you, or
that's interesting. Do they use drones out there much? Because it seems like a good candidate for drones.
Drones, yes, but it's always the wind. I've never experienced wind like this before. It's just because there's no trees. It's a small island. The buildings aren't even very high, so there's nothing blocking the wind. But the drones are very, very. It's a great asset for avalanche rescue, which is mostly what we do. If it's too dangerous, if it's safe enough to fly a drone, we have like drones that have the heat detectors. So we just have like a drone specialist that flies the drone over the avalanche area, and that keeps us and the dogs out of that danger. And that has worked quite a few times.
Okay.
But that's very weather dependent.
Well, drone pilots are little wussies because they're worse than dog handlers. They'll give you 87 excuses why this isn't the perfect moment. It's like Doctor Strange in Avengers Endgame, where he's just waiting for the right moment. Like, now I can fly my drone.
When it works, it's so great. It's so great.
Oh, it is. But it's just, you've got to train them to go a little bit outside their comfort zone, or else you'll never get them off the ground in adverse conditions. We just had a drone, the first drone people dog find where you had the resources coming in from different directions, because everything added up perfectly, and it was textbook. It was great. It sounds like I had a conversation with somebody about they were out in Midwest, and they were in the desert, and they were working with the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department dropped them. They started their own team, went somewhere else, and they were saying, we moved over, blah blah blah, but we've got a different area, and I need to ask you some expertise. And I said, sure. What do you want? They said, how do you deal with trees? And I said, come again? They said, trees. How do you deal with trees? Because they're out there, they're blocking your view of everything.
Yeah.
I said, I never thought about that. We have here where we are in our area, and I'm not going to do that stuff where it's the toughest thing in the world, because it isn't, but we do have a mix of demographics that I think we get used to. Mm-hmm. We get used to a little extra heat, a little extra cold. We don't get used to 90-mile-per-hour winds. But the fact is that I've seen it when we've gone outside of our demographic, our immediate demographic on searches. It's been really we've held our own fine against the locals who deal with it all the time, whatever the extreme is, because we have to have a variety of things. I can't imagine searching if I can see for miles. I think that would actually add to my frustration.
Yeah.
I think that would make me falsely clear areas. I feel more like I'm wasting time quicker because I don't see them.
Right.
Just like we search better, even though it's counterintuitive, we search better at night. People move slower; they pay more attention. But does anything from here transfer to out there that you recall? Far as things you remember, whatever.
Yeah, other than, the basic, all the tactical skills that we trained. Well, I feel like a good example is Xena, my dog, did some training with our team, GPSR. And then when I brought her here, we did a training, and they primarily train in lava fields. And Xena was so used to searching through a forest, or training in a forest, or training in these tall buildings or inside of a building. And then in Iceland, you don't have that. You don't have these big empty buildings, or you don't have forests to train in. So when we did her first puppy run in Iceland, it's just an open lava field. So she just immediately walks to the person, and then she's like, okay, what now? It was just very, very different.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be weird
She was
because
always confused because she's just looking up instead of, uh, looking at someone behind a rock on the ground.
right, right. And if your eyes see them, you're not going to use your nose as much. You're just not.
Yeah, so she kind of just looked at the person laying behind a rock, and it's like, what do I do?
Okay. Okay. Have you had you've gone through you're going in your master's program now, and uh, you've always been big about the ecology and everything. Have you had the ability? You're doing uh, tour guides, so are you getting the chance? Have you gotten the chance, or are you? I guess I mean you're 31. You're old now, so you can mentor people. Have you mentored anyone? Because you're pushing 40. I mean, you got to get it.
No, I'm just getting used to the 30s.
No, it's 31, 35, 39. Oh my God, my life is over. 40. Okay. And then it's 41 where the doctor says, you've got to take these pills forever. And I'm going to probe you in a new offensive way. And then it's this haze until 50. And then it's 50. You say, okay, we're throwing out all the T-shirts that say things that we thought were funny on them.
Yeah.
So,
no, I just went through that, throw out all of my 20 clothes.
See, now this is what always happens. We go off topic. When you were throwing out your 20s clothes, did you look at anything and go, I wore that? Oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what was I thinking? Where was my head?
Yeah.
No, that, so, and who's been your mentor?
Sorry, that broke up a tiny bit. Did you say who?
Who's been your mentor? Who has mentored you over time? What kind of mentors have you had?
Here in Iceland.
All over. We can talk about Jersey too. And I'll try not to insult it. I usually make Jersey jokes.
I mean, I could give such a vague answer or a complex answer. I mean, like my mentors have always been either a professor of mine or even just being a part of the Philadelphia rescue team that influenced me. As soon as I moved to Iceland, I emailed every single team, just wanting to join and expand my knowledge here.
Okay.
And then I did 2 years of my master's degree in Iceland, so I learned so much just from my professors here, and getting a different perspective, or just going to school here and meeting people from all over the world. I've never had that growing up in South Jersey. You just have one perspective.
Yeah, barely one. Yeah, the rest of the world is North Jersey.
Yeah, pretty much. And you don't even want to go there.
You don't want to go there.
Stay in the South. Maybe Central.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe Central, but Central doesn't seem like to be called Central. You get a big fight on what is Central Jersey. But the you were on I can say it, right? The show.
Yeah.
Naked and Afraid, and yeah, and you did good on the show, and I advised you against it, and you didn't listen. You did good. That's fine. But I advised you against it.
I told you I wouldn't be available. You're like, don't do it.
I don't change my tune. I'm not the kind of person that goes, Danielle, I believed in you, and I was behind you, and I wanted you to do it. No. We can go back a million times in time. I will advise you against it every time.
Yep.
I will advise you against it every time.
Yep.
I just don't. I mean, if I think Naked and Afraid is a show, I think that you should go on it if you hit a certain age, because you don't care if you're out there for the next 10 years at the end of your life or whatever. But at the beginning of your life, you could be out there. That could be in reruns for 60 years. You're seeing that or something, you know?
It's still in reruns.
Yeah, it's scary. Once you get your image on this thing, it can just circulate and get regurgitated. But your image naked, you know?
Well, it is censored mostly.
It is censored, but the mind fills in the gaps. Yeah. I remember watching your show, and I remember just just wanting to hit a button or protest one thing. You were leaning up and you were looking, you were telling somebody, oh, I found something to eat, and you were reaching up and you were getting river cabbage.
Yeah.
And the cameraman came down low and up and under. I'm like, what are you doing? Worst angle in every sense of the word. You don't go low when someone's reaching, clothed or naked.
Well, maybe to get the actual, like, I don't know, it was off a tree.
Yeah, it was just low. Do you feel that show, was that show an education? I mean, it was an experience. Was it an education? Did it change you? Would you do things differently at all?
It was probably the biggest experience I'm most grateful for, yes. And I was 24 when I did the first one, and I was 25 when I did the second one.
So it was like 10 years ago.
I think it was 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, like when I first did it, I was just thinking this is an awesome way to travel, to see a remote part of the world and just live off the land and have a safety net, because obviously they're not going to put me somewhere where I'm going to die. Like, yeah, I might get injured or hurt or something, but I'm going to learn so much. And I think the biggest lesson I learned is how much I fear the small things, like insects. Like, there is big animals and snakes and whatever, but I learned like how much, something as small as a mosquito or a tick can affect your life forever, because that has happened to other people that did it. But also just how grateful I am for things that we have in the US and things that you don't have when you're in a different country or when you're living off the land.
When you were on the show, what was the first thing or one of the first things you remember that you missed not having in the civilized world,
I mean, my immediate answer to that is just like friends or family. Like, you just miss the connections that you have every day or the people that you speak to. You miss your regular routine.
I think I would have went with flush toilet.
Flushed.
Or running water.
Yeah, but we had like a really nice river, very clean water.
Well, see, I always
immediately, but we did.
I remember being down and watching one of the dogs walk across this nice water that ran into this thing where they bottle water, and the dog stops midway. It's a female dog that just pees. And I said, that is why I don't buy into the whole bottled water concept right there. There are critters that are just walking across here. Or when we find somebody who's in water, and I tell him, I told the one guy on this last search, I said, there you go. Next time you buy in bottled water, keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And, I just, it's funny because Naked and Afraid is a good concept because taking people out of their elements. But I think there is that underlying thing where they're not going to let you die. They're not going
to have like an emergency beacon, like if you need to quit or something, like you can go home.
In some ways, you have not right there, but you have more that will come to you quicker than you did at home if something goes wrong, potentially. So there was that thing. I always thought the show would be better if they just put you guys like, it should be like, put you guys in too many of you in a small apartment and like call it half dressed and annoyed, and you all have to share just enough clothes so you can all be half dressed at a different time. And that's the show. That's my concept. Half dressed and annoyed, not naked and afraid.
But it was actually more beneficial to be naked because it was 120 degrees Fahrenheit. But to put that into like a visual thing, or like it was like someone had a hot towel and like put it against your face, and you're breathing through a hot rag every moment.
But the show by showing the struggle of the people going through the stuff, just I think it took the fun out of nudity, because the nudity the nudity almost, it got to the point later in the show for me as a viewer, the nudity became secondary, you know?
Yeah, and you don't think about it at all when you're out there.
Right. And well, congratulations, guys. You've made nudity boring.
Yes.
You know, it's but do you still keep in touch with people from the show?
Yeah. We talk all the time. Like when we first left, I couldn't stop like sending each other pictures of food, or it was weird just walking, down the street, and you're always like on the show, you're always looking for resources. So you're always picking up firewood. Like you would never walk empty-handed back to your camp. So I'm just like walking my dog down the street and I'm looking for firewood. And I'm like, oh, like just grabbing for this. And I'm like, wait, I live in a house.
And that's weird. That's weird about because with search and rescue, people are always talking about, oh, we don't have this, we don't have. I'm big on doing what you have with, what you can with what you have where you are when you're there, and just doing that. And like, well, and it's not to say don't be prepared, but if you get there, I don't like to think, oh, we have nothing. Mm-hmm. You've just got to find where the abundance is. It's there. You've got to use it. And that's how we get out of so many things. And it's great to have a bunch of stuff, but the stuff can be a limitation, because when you have everything, I see it in some emergency services where they pull it with a big stocked rescue truck. They're used to having everything there. And if they can't think about around the things in that truck, they're not used to remapping their mind and thinking about it differently. And I think that's good on the that was good on the show. And some of the I like the MacGyver and the improvising stuff. I found myself always annoyed by the people that when they would throw the word expert after somebody's name, that usually meant that somebody had watched an extra dozen hours of YouTube videos on whatever it was. But usually they'd be down there trying to make a fire and it's not happening,
Yeah.
And it's what do you think from being there? What is more important in your mind? We'll take clothing out, but it's food, fire, shelter.
Before any of those, I would put your attitude.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's food, fire, shelter, water, and I feel like shelter would be the number one.
Okay.
Because shelter can also mean your clothing or your protection, like protection from the sun or the insects.
Okay.
Because if you don't protect your body, then you can't get food or water or fire,
Yeah, I do fire. It's water and fire for me, because fire I have trouble making. And I just struggle with it, so I got to get that done. I can throw a shelter up quicker than I can get a fire going. And there's something mentally, you talked about attitude. A fire is a mental safety net. A fire is a little bit of control. A fire is life, and fire first. And I need the water to keep hydrated, because you run out of water quick, and food is down the line. And shelter I can rig up. And like you said, my shelter is on my back, in a pinch. But the fire is really the main thing.
And also fire, like not only for warmth and to cook your food, but if you're anywhere like where there's predators, just if you have that smoke, the animals will sense the smoke and they know like they will not come near you. So that was just kind of a safety thing.
Yeah, it keeps off large animals and it keeps off small insects. It's good in every way. It's good in every way. We were
taking the charcoal and like rubbing it all over our skin, and that would keep the mosquitoes away, because just the smokiness and the charcoal, it just repels them naturally.
I just can't imagine. And I'd see people going to the show, and I remember you were agonizing about going into it and everything, and I just saw how much weight people were losing, and I think that you're better to go into it like almost a little fat, Oh,
that was the best part, preparing.
Yeah. I just getting fat and
I was having like double protein shakes every day, ice cream, pizza.
And you're still a vegetarian.
I am, yeah.
And I don't know why I said you're still a vegetarian. I don't know why I said it that way, but and I just recently said something on here which people responded to, where I said that there's they had talked about forcing the meat packers to go back to work, and you know, I'm not on the political side of it, but I really think that processing of food, whatever it is, I think you need all the safeties in the world, and I think the people that are doing it need to be safe and secure too. And I said, I never thought I'd say this, but if I have to go a little bit of time and not eat meat, then for people to be safe, then I won't eat meat. That's fine. I said, long as, like I said then, it's coming out now. I'm not going to say any heroic thing. I'm not going to become a vegetarian. I said, at first I started to say I could go months, and then it got down to weeks. And it was like, I could commit to 10 days. I'll give 10 days right now, and I'll start there. And I really need a graph of what actually is meat, because I don't believe Spam is meat, but it is kind of, or bologna. So I need to get things. It's like when people say they're a vegetarian, but they eat fish or they eat chicken. I don't understand that, because that's still meat, right? I mean, vegetarian is no animal meat at all. None, right?
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic for me, because I've been vegetarian since I was 3, but I never knew, I never had a word for myself. I just didn't eat things with faces. Is how I
okay.
Yeah, but there's, you can be a vegetarian, but you can be a pescatarian, which means you eat fish only. And the newest word I heard, you can be a vegan, which means no products from animals. But now you can be a vegan, B-E-E, vegan, which means you're vegan, but you eat honey. Although honey is an animal product from a bee. But I feel
okay.
people love having putting a title or labeling something. But I've always just been for the ethical reasons.
And I get that. Because while and we're almost out of time, and we'll cut to the other thing. I'll just put up the word here so you can see it, and just do a little pause. But I get the ethical thing of it. I get the part where sometimes eating meat can feel bad. It can feel disgusting. Sometimes it can feel amazing, but sometimes, many times, whenever we have a recovery in search and rescue, I'm a vegetarian for about 2 or 3 days after that. Always. That's always happened. It's just, there's sometimes you think about, like you just said, eating things with faces. You break it down like that, it can be bothersome. I go and I eat at an Indian restaurant occasionally, because they have a wide variety of vegetarian things that are very flavorful, that are very good for you. You wouldn't know the difference. It's interesting. You said from the age of 3, so you're not really a vegetarian or anything. That's a name that society threw on it. You're just doing what you do.
Yeah, and that's why, if I wear a leather jacket or something, people are like, you're not really a vegetarian because you wear leather, but I'm not used to having a label for,
right.
my choices.
Right. The label came after the choice. The label wasn't because of the choice. It wasn't a fashion statement. So the label came talking with Danielle. The label came afterwards. You learned what being vegetarian was after you were a vegetarian. Do you feel at all that the label changes it? You just said you'd wear a leather jacket and somebody may roll their eyes at you. Do you feel like there are people that are doing it because it's trendy versus a choice,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like I've never
fad or something, or people just think that's a way to lose weight is to go vegetarian, which is not
right. I've never done drugs, any kind of drug, I don't drink a lot because when I do, it's bad. It's like Olympic level. I do it once or twice a year, and people are always like, "That was remarkable. I can't believe anybody survived that." It's pretty much leave the blender, But I don't like. I've never done it. I've never had the inclination to do anything with drugs. But I think that there's a lot of drugs that are a lot less harmful than a lot of things like alcohol or cigarettes can be to people. But it's a personal choice. But I don't understand. You're not gonna convince me, or I don't care what people think about my choice not to do it. I have a friend right now who's decided to take. He's smoking marijuana, and he's tried to get me to do it because he's talked about opening his mind and everything. And I told him it's great. I said it's great, and I'm glad it's doing that for you. I said, but one thing it's done is it's also made you really super annoying. Okay, because you're like you're like somebody that gets a Prius that says you're going to drive that, you're killing the planet, it guzzles gas, you need to get a Prius, blah 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 blah. And you're just pushing it on somebody. People make their own choices. And, I respect people that make pure choices, whether I agree with them or not. I respect the pure choices, but I don't, when somebody is something because it suits an agenda or something, that's why I don't agree about that. That's why I've always been very stubborn about my things in search and rescue, because it became clear to me after years of doing it that it became a calling. It went beyond a passion to become a calling. And I know in the same way that people must know when they have some spiritual vision or whatever, I know what I have to do. And I know what I have to do regardless of whoever tries to stop me. I'm going to try and do my best. And I'm not doing it for anything other than it needs to be done. And I like people that have that same mindset. Now it's a big comparison. Because you compare Jersey to anywhere. What are the people like in Iceland versus the people in Jersey? What are some major differences?
Just in general?
Yeah, like can you make left turns in Iceland?
I noticed right away the Icelandic community. You have to realize that one of our biggest industries, of course, there's fishing, aluminum, and then there's tourism. So there's so many tourists. I've never lived in a place where you open your door and it's 90% tourists, 10% locals.
So it's worse than the shore or anything.
Yeah. I've never met so many people from all over the world, which is a really cool experience. But when you're trying to fit in with the locals, it's really difficult. And even as a university student, I made great friends, but there's so many people that come and go all the time. And, they offer cheap flights from the US, from Europe. It's an amazing country. Everyone comes and goes so quickly. So as soon as you make a friend, they're just here for a semester and then they go home. And that's how the Icelanders are. It's very hard to make a connection because they think that you might just be leaving, or especially if you don't speak Icelandic, it makes it so much more difficult to be in a circle of friends or to get a job or, just feel like you actually fit in. It took me a good 2 years to actually feel like I had a good circle of friends here.
Well, growing up, I lived in my father was, I don't want to own up because this ties me to Jersey. Let me skirt around this a little. I spent a lot of time in a town in Jersey, and we had roots down there. There were some people that were permanently living there, and then we would come down and visit. Obviously, the generation that would come and visit and spend the summer or whatever. So we were quasi tourists, but we were like local tourists versus tourists. And I remember very early on hating tourists, hating everything about them, because they never took ownership. They treated it in a certain way, and there was this casualness about it, and I just, there were good tourists, there were bad tourists, but I just didn't like being in a tourist town. Nobody wants to own a tourist town. Everybody just rent it, and and see that's part of the problem. That's one of the things that I always, I think I've had this talk with you about. You've got a mixed plus. You're meeting friends. You go do the show. You have the disadvantage. Everybody thinks that, oh, if I'm a pretty girl, the world is my oyster. It'll be an advantage. I don't think so. I don't think it's an advantage. I think because everybody comes at you at an angle, and everybody is disingenuous. Not everybody, but a majority of people. You have to be more cautious, but you don't want to be more cautious because you want to be a nice person, everything. But then the world just feeds on that. Right. And I feel this is a topic we can talk about because we're both pretty girls, and we can relate. But I've always felt like that's why when you went on a show, it's like, no, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Have those lessons come to call from time and again? Have you got a little more cynical, a little more skeptical, a little more protected?
Well, it's very, like, what I really like about Iceland is they're all, like, women equality and everything. So it's such a, just within this small city, Reykjavik, the population is, like 2/3 of the population lives here, which is around 250,000 people. But everyone is so woman-powered and equality. So you don't feel like you're being judged ever by how you look or if you're male or female.
Okay.
So just living here in the 4 years, I've never run into that. And
wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Do they put that on in their tourist brochures? Because there's a reason to go. Especially
they have the first female president in Iceland. So and they have like marches and gatherings, and it's very like women equal, or
Oh, I
so I'm not used to that. And everyone's it's very an artsy town, so everyone's just wearing makeup and crazy colored hair.
But are you telling me that Iceland is creepless? That is a creep-free country?
The interesting thing is there's no crime here. And I always wondered why. And it's it's because it's an island. There's only one highway. It's called Route 1 that goes around the entire country. If you steal a car or if you do something, there's nowhere to hide. There's no nature to hide in. Like, you can't hide in the lava fields. Like, you will die. So, and your reputation is everything. So people don't do bad things because you can't run away from it. You can't just move to the north and start over. It follows you, or you can't steal something because someone's going to see it tomorrow.
Huh. That's interesting. I would wonder before and after how like the internet has impacted a place like that, because I feel like the internet can damage cultures. I think it can help sometimes, but I think sometimes it seems to damage things because I think that people get exposure to more of the outside world and compare themselves to unrealistic things, and they want to go outside. But it sounds like it's a giant small town,
Right. And everybody knows everyone's name, or if you don't know their name, like someone that knows them.
Do people lock their doors and stuff, or they just don't lock them?
You don't lock your doors. You don't lock your cars.
How do you get around? Did you take the Jeep out there, or?
No, I thought about taking my car, but it was too expensive with the taxes. So it just made more sense to just buy something little here.
Where's the Jeep at?
I sold it.
You sold it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you love that Jeep.
My macaroni and cheese Jeep.
Yeah, love that Jeep.
Yeah.
Do you ever miss Jersey?
Mm-hmm. I miss it a lot. I do.
What do you now? Not being not being a meat eater, I mean, technically, I mean, we could debate this, but I think you could still eat scrapple because I don't think there's any actual
No, I
in there.
wouldn't.
But there's many reasons to not eat scrapple, and being a vegetarian is just one. But do you miss like soft pretzels, stuff like that?
Yeah, I always tell my friends here about soft pretzels. That's not a thing here. It doesn't exist.
Well,
especially with like melted cheese or something. It's so like I miss that so much.
and whenever anybody tries to make these simple things that are local here, that are just simple things, you go 2 states away and they ruin it. You know, I remember I was in Bermuda and they had on the menu was a Philly cheesesteak. And being absolutely uncreative, I said, "Yeah, I'll like the Philly cheesesteak." And and I was just outraged at how horrible it was. It just broke it down for them.
But were you that surprised?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. I was not surprised at all. We don't make complicated foods here, but nobody else can duplicate them. Like if you go get every pretzel a state away on out, tastes different. They don't taste like the pretzels here, and because we're used to them here, we think this is what a pretzel's supposed to be. Not those airport bricks that they give you that that are the long shape and everything else.
Yeah, it's hard to describe to people here like what a Philly pretzel is or a Philly cheesesteak, which I've never had the real one, but.
Or water ice. I don't know if they.
Yeah, water ice. That's another thing. Like when I brought my Icelandic friends to New Jersey, they're like, "What is this?"
Yeah, water ice and what else?
But even just fresh vegetables, like you can't grow many vegetables here. There's greenhouses. There's geothermal powered greenhouses, which is amazing, but it's not the same as growing it in fertile soil.
But isn't this almost a place where the planet doesn't want us to live? I mean, isn't as inhospitable as it could be almost?
It's very harsh.
Yeah, I mean, it's like nature's putting a big "stay out" sign up.
It rains almost every day. Like there is so much beauty to it, but it is very unforgiving.
It seems like one of those places where it would be like, train people to go to another planet by, staying there,
A lot of the times I look around and it feels like I'm on the moon. Like no civilization.
Now you talk about the lava fields and everything here that they have there. Are the lava fields, I'm just wondering, in search and rescue on the dogs, are the lava fields jagged on their feet? Because I know lava, when I've dealt with it, can be very sharp. Do they have to wear booties?
No. Like it depends on the type of dog, of course, and their upbringing. Like Xena, you've met my dog. She did not do well at all, like in this rubble training or cave training, but she was very good at avalanche rescue. But a lot of there's not many types of dogs here, but there's a lot of border collies and smaller dogs. And when they're raised in this environment, they just naturally, build the calluses and they're like an expert going in the caves. But they don't usually use dogs so much in caves as they do people.
Yeah. When are you back? When are you coming back to the States?
I have a flight booked for June, but I have no idea if it will be.
Oh, because of what's going on.
Yeah. But I plan on coming back for 3 weeks.
How long does it take to get there? Get here from there?
It's super easy. It's a 4.5-hour flight.
That's it?
Yeah, and when there was the old airline WoW Air, you could get a round trip ticket for $150. It was so nice. Like it doesn't like you hear Iceland, it just feels so far away. It's so close. It's so easy.
I guess that explains the heavy tourist industry because it's not a long flight.
Mm-hmm. Especially like leaving from the east coast of the U.S. It's nothing. And the flights were usually at night. So you you board the plane at 10 o'clock, you fall asleep, you wake up in Iceland. It's that easy.
Yeah. Do Do you do much social media? Are you doing the same? Are you on it as much? Or I remember there was a point where right before Negative Freight, where we were talking, and you were saying one of those things that just set me off, and you were saying how you were trying to brand yourself, and I was like, you got to be careful, because you were doing interviews, and I always worried that somebody, in my scenario, everybody ends up getting accosted behind a dumpster at a 7-Eleven or something,
Yeah.
So, and it's like, oh, I'm going to meet a guy. It's like, no, don't do that, And I guess that comes from looking for missing people. You just get jumpy about it because, I feel like many cases would have been stopped if somebody would have said, don't do that. Don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still on social media or have you backed off? Is that worn off with you?
Like when I was in a contract with Discovery, we would have to post things and do certain hashtags, whatever. But now I don't really care. Like I really like Instagram, and I like it because there's not really much words and media and news and stuff. It's just photos and then hashtagging, and I like that because you can connect with your similar interests. So I do use that.
So Instagram is more visual and less typing. So I guess that leads to probably less radical one way or another. So that keeps that nonsense lower. Where are you at since I'm old and I'm like Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook has just become like this trap, like in the Dark Knight Rises, where Bane led all the cops in the sewer so he could trap them in there. I think it's where everybody under like 30 is trapped. Everybody over 30 in Facebook, and they've went on to other things. And now, what's the one everybody? But see, older people going to TikTok. I see people going to.
I've never had a TikTok, and I think I'm purposely trying to not have one.
See, that right there, you've walked into my trap. That is what it's like to get old, right there. You just said, I've never had a TikTok, and I never will because I don't see the need to have a TikTok.
Yeah, it's just too much to bother. Like, I don't want to download another app, and I have my friends on my certain platforms, and that's good enough for me.
It's too many. It keeps changing. Now you're understanding things about getting old. You understand why people always wear black or always wear the same outfit or you go to Bob Evans for consistent food. It's because you don't want the world changing every single day in every way. You need some normalcy to grab into. How old is Xena?
She's 8.
8? How's she doing?
She's doing really well. She doesn't look or act like she's aged at all.
That's good. Yeah. Stay safe. Maybe when you come back, maybe I can see you. You can stop by.
I have a flight for June 17th. So I kind of just feel like 2 days before that, I'll know if it's actually happening or not.
Yeah, we'll see where the world is. I mean, we
yeah.
There may be just 12 monkeys left, and that may be it. We'll see what happens. It was good talking to you. It was good seeing you. And I know it's 4 hours later there, so you got to get to bed. We both got to get our beauty sleep. But I'll tell everybody you said hi, and we'll talk. We'll talk again at some point.
That sounds great.
Okay, stay safe.
Thank you. Very nice to talk to you, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was fun. I haven't talked to her in a while. That was fun. I gotta get some more people on here. Do this some more. But it's always good to talk to people, and everybody has their opinion, their values, beliefs, and you need to expose yourself to different people. I like meeting people and dealing with people younger than me that have different values and beliefs on some. That's how you learn. That's how you grow.